Clause 8.1 Operational Planning and Control. Hi friends, I welcome you all here at TNV Academy. In this session, we are going to talk about Clause 8.1 Operational Planning and Control of an international standard ISO IEC 20001-2018 Information Technology Service Management. In this session, we shall cover all the requirements of Clause 8.1 Operational Planning and Control in detail along with appropriate examples. As the requirements of Clause 8.1 depend upon the requirements of Clause 6 and Clause 7, I would like to recommend you referring these clauses of ISO 20001-2018 also for your better understanding of Clause 8. Apart from that, you are also recommended to refer Clause 8.5.1 and Clause 8.2.3 of Standard. Clause 8.1 of the Standard relates to operational planning and control. At first glance, it appears to be a copy of requirements of ISO 9001-2015, but further reading shows that it is different. Mandatory documents. Clause 8.1 says that the organization shall plan, implement, and control the processes needed to meet requirements and to implement the actions determined in Clause 6 by keeping documented information to the extent necessary to have confidence that the processes have been carried out as planned. Let's discuss about the outcome of this session. After completing this session, you will be enabled to determine and maintain the knowledge necessary to support the operations of the SMS and the services. You will also learn about relevancy and usability of knowledge and availability to appropriate persons. Now, let's have an introduction of Subclause 8.1 Operational Planning and Control. Let me simply read first the requirements of the Subclause 8.1 Operational Planning and Control of the Standard. Clause 8.1 Operational Planning and Control. The organization shall plan, implement, and control the processes needed to meet requirements and to implement the actions determined in Clause 6 by Point 1. Establishing performance criteria for the processes based on the requirements. Point 2. Implementing control of the processes in accordance with the established performance criteria. Point 3. Keeping documented information to the extent necessary to have confidence that the processes have been carried out as planned. The organization shall control planned changes to the SMS and review the consequences of unintended changes, taking action to mitigate any adverse effects as necessary. See 8.5.1. The organization shall ensure that outsourced processes are controlled. See 8.2.3. Coming to the references. The organization shall control planned changes to the SMS and review the consequences of unintended changes, taking action to mitigate any adverse effects as necessary. You are recommended to read Clause 8.5.1 to understand this. The organization shall ensure that outsourced processes are controlled. Please see Clause 8.2.3 for additional information on it. Now, let's start with Clause 8.1. Clause 8.1 of the Standard relates to operational planning and control. At first glance, it appears to be a copy of requirements of ISO 9001-2015, but further reading shows that it is different. If you are setting up your service management system in the direction that the standard has been written, you will have arrived at Clause 8 of the Standard with risk, opportunities, and objectives that need to be considered when establishing the service management system. Without this understanding to hand, you could develop an management system that does not address these risks and opportunities or support the setting objectives. The standard requires us to establish performance criteria for the processes based on requirements, or In other words, what performance processes are desirable to determine the effectiveness of processes in the SMS. These might include performance against targets, numbers of occurrence and problems, lost and gained services, volumes against supply and demand, security breaches, customer satisfaction and complaints, plus much more. These measures must be appropriate to each individual business. Don't measure and monitor things that do not bring service improvement or customer satisfaction. Once you understand the measurement criteria, you can initiate to build the service management system to meet these requirements. Implementing control of the processes in accordance with established performance criteria. Performance criteria communicated through SLAs, OLAs, and KPIs. A good management system doesn't end there, as it will have determined what documented information needs to be kept to exhibit achievement of measures and compliance to the standard. The control of scheduled changes and the evaluation of consequences of unintended changes leave many with a challenge. We all understand planned changes, especially if we have an effective change management process in place, which will naturally control planned changes. However, the consequences of unintended change are a little unclear, probably because it covers a broad subject. So let's cover this further. Unintended change might result from process creep, where a process has been developed and moved away from its agreed path without consultation with other departments that might be affected. And the consequence is the unintended change brought upon other processes which rely on the initial process that has been changed. Other areas where the consequences of unintended change may be found are related to impacts of incidents, problems, and non-conformities, where the errors have impacts that are either unexpected or unintended and need further consideration. Another example in relation to this standard is service creep, where items of equipment owned by a customer and outside the contracted service agreement are accepted up in the service contract because of poor asset management and configuration management, and you are effectively end up servicing equipment for free. If these types of things occur, it is important that the actions are investigated through to root cause level to prevent their repetition. The final line in clause 8.1 is about outsourced processes, one line that is very important to ensure compliance to the standard. In this standard, if any process is outsourced to a third party, the organization has a responsibility to ensure that the outsourced process is effective through setting appropriate SLAs or OLAs, and agree service review meetings should be set up. By implementing the rest of clause 8 of this standard, then compliance to 8.1 will be achieved naturally. Now, let's talk about benefits of implementing clause 8.1. When implemented properly, clause 8.1 should result in the following tangible benefits for your company. The activities related to intake of customer orders, the design of service, purchasing, production or service provisions, inspection and testing, and non-conformity control will be well thought out before you take on work. This will reduce surprises and non-conformities. You will have suitable means of measuring these operational processes in real time, so that if the processes start to deviate, you will know before non-conformity is encountered. You may develop customer-specific or service-specific service management plans, which help tailor the SMS for those cases. Now, coming to the non-conformity. Please see the Auditor Finding Action Report (NC) on screen for writing non-conformities under this clause. I will leave it up to you now. Please go through this and try to understand the various components of this non-conformance report. Now, let me talk in brief about the common mistakes auditors do while auditing. It is highly recommended that being an auditor, you should avoid some common mistakes like reporting of findings without verifying evidence, ignoring the facts, asking irrelevant questions to the organization, and starting consulting activities with the client, etc. Auditors should avoid these kind of mistakes which are very common in nature during the audits. Dear friends, we have now come to the conclusion of this training session. See you soon with an exciting new topic. Till then, goodbye.